Welcome back to the Mindset Mastery Minis, where we are diving into how your mind works, how you can master not only your mind, but your mindset and also your emotional inner world in order to help you create more liberation in your life, more balance, more ease, more baseline harmony, which when we have this inner harmony state, we are able to more easily, more easily show up in the world around us. So when things happen, when we go through challenging situations, when we have to do something that's really stressful, we are able to stay grounded from within. And that is what true balance really comes down to. So last week we went into understanding the power of the mind, really getting into the baseline of how the mind works. And this week we're going to go into the specifics of, okay, now that I understand like what the pieces are, how do I put them into action? How do I rewire my mind in order to make it work for me? So if you are new here, welcome. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so that you can be alerted every single week as these Mindset Mastery Minis continue to come out. These are all going to be hopefully around 10 minutes. So it's just short and sweet, to the point, exactly what you need informationally, educationally, and shifting wise to actually start putting these pieces into place. You can also go and subscribe to the newsletter, where I also give weekly updates so that you are reminded of these episodes coming out with a little bit of extra support. Often I give some extra tips and actions that you can take to actually put these pieces into place. So highly recommend that you do that as well. If you are new here, welcome. My name is Olivia Heine. I'm an NLP and cyclical success coach, and I help you revolutionize the way that you do success so that you can create systemized harmony in your life. So systems for creating balance from the inside out, not feeling succumbed to the stress and the anxiety that we often feel as we move through life, not feeling like our mind or our emotions are running the show, but that you can actually step into that, creating that balance for yourself and allow that to be that foundation that supports you in achieving everything that you want to achieve. So that is also what we're going into today, essentially. So we're not talking about like the big dreams and the big goals, but we're talking about how you get there. And that comes back to the mind. So today we're going to dive into the topic of patterns, the belief patterns, the feedback loops that create those belief patterns, and how you can rewire your mind. And we're going to try and do it in the next 8 minutes. So bear with me. Like we talked about last week, the subconscious mind and how it works is the baseline. It's like the structure, it's the engine. And now we want to start to understand, okay, well, how can I rev the engine? How can I make the engine work for me? How can I go faster without burning the engine out? Like we're starting to fine tune it so that it really works for you and how you want to be using this engine. So the first thing we want to understand is the loop that happens as we move through the process of the mind every time we experience something in the world. And this is happening every single second of every single day. We're constantly taking in information. And even if you're not consciously aware of it, again, that's the non-conscious part, the subconscious part of the mind, that part is always taking in information. So even if you're focused on something on your computer, it's going to be taking a scan of the room to see what's going on around me. What do I maybe need to be aware of? What sounds do I hear in the distance? So that it can stay on alert. It's constantly watching out for you. The same way that it is regulating your digestion, and your digestion is not something you have to think about. You don't need to think about breathing. It is simply doing that work for you. And so even if you're not consciously aware of it, it is constantly taking in so much information every single second of every single day. And so as it takes in information, it is basically filtering all this information, because it would be way too much to try and just literally consciously take in all of it. You would be overwhelmed the entire time just trying to process all this information. So the subconscious mind does that for you. It decides what's important, what's not that important, what do we want to be focusing on. So that's kind of the first filter. And this is something called the RAS, the reticular activating system. If you care to know any of these details, it goes through the first guard, basically, the first guard in our protection system. And this first guard, the RAS, is going to say, what's worth taking in? What is worth actually being aware of? What's worth seeing as we process this information? What do I want to tell the general body about? And the second step then, once we have kind of done that first filter, is we put a literal filter on the information that we get to try and organize it. So as soon as a piece of information comes through, such as, okay, we're crossing the street, ooh, there are cars coming, that's important. We want to be aware of the fact that there are cars in the street. Then it will filter through and say, is that a good or a bad thing? So it's kind of taking it one step further and putting a filter on the situation and creating a story around it. The same thing can be true if we're thinking about a more specific example, such as waking up in the morning and feeling tired. And so you take in the situation, you filter that information. The body says, yeah, we're tired today. And then you put a filter on that and you say, is that a good or a bad thing? And that kind of creates this aura around that piece of information, which says, we're tired today, right? And so what this does, this is the way in, right? So we have two sets of guards essentially. We have the first filter, which is what piece of this information is important, and then we have the second filter, which is how do we filter this piece of information? How do we create a story around it so that it makes sense and we can organize it in the mind? And again, both of these things happen on the subconscious level. So whatever programming you have is going to be how you filter those things. So if we think running across the street when there's a bunch of cars coming is a bad thing, that's going to be the filter. And that's probably a pretty important thing to think because that is part of your safety. You don't want to be running across the street. But if we didn't believe that, if that wasn't part of our belief system, we would have a different filter around that story. Does that make sense? I know it's really simple, but I want to keep it like very general and simple so we don't get too far into the nitty-gritty. We just understand the baseline workings of all of this. So once you've taken in the information, then it's time to bring it back out into the world. So it's kind of like this cycle loop of what do I take in and then what do I push back out in terms of my response. So the belief system is kind of the main root of all of this. So it's going to be the determiner of what comes in and how you process what's coming in. And it's also going to be the determiner of what do you then respond with? How do you then react back into the world based on the information that you've received? So your belief systems then not only inform the story that you receive, but also then how you respond back into the world. So it's going to influence your behavior. It's going to influence your habits. It's going to influence how you react. So your belief systems then are creating this filter of how you respond and react and the behaviors that you have. So whatever your belief systems then are is going to affect the behavior that you put out into the world. So that can be your habits, how you show up for yourself every day, how you feel emotionally, how you're able to shift your mindset if say you do wake up and you feel tired or you are feeling anxious about work, how much authority do you have to actually change those things for yourself versus how much are you just letting these two filters based on how you take in the world, so the RAS and this belief system filter, determine the story that you then project back out into the world. Does that make sense? Are you following me here? So, in order to change how you feel externally, how you respond, your emotional regulation, the stress levels that you feel, the anxiety that you feel, in order to come back to a place of actually feeling balanced, feeling regulated, feeling at peace, feeling harmony in your life, feeling like you can navigate and manage everything that's coming your way, we need to change the filter. And specifically, we need to change the belief system filter because the RAS, this first line of guarding basically, is always going to just take in what it feels is important to you, and we can change what it's taking in. And that's actually a super important second step. But first and foremost, we want to start shifting what the filter of the story is that you're creating around the information that you take in. And that comes down to shifting your belief systems, creating a new belief pattern, which will then in turn create new feedback loops. So basically, this is all one big pattern, right? Of what you take on versus what you then respond to back out into the world. And this can be a loop that you stay stuck in, right? This can be a loop where the pattern repeats itself over and over again. And a really great example is your mindset, having a negative mindset, feeling stuck, feeling like things aren't working for you, feeling overwhelmed, also feeling emotionally regulated. Are your emotions taking over? Do you feel like you're able to go through a difficult conversation or share what you need to share or share your emotions, or are your emotions controlling you? And so this is what it means to rewire your mind. And literally, it's kind of a great example of taking a route home from work every day. And if you just take the same route home, chances are you're not really consciously taking that route, right? It's just like, you know where you turn, you know where you need to look. You're doing a lot of things on autopilot. And that's how most of us are working with our subconscious mind. It's just on autopilot. We're not really consciously thinking about it at all. And what we want to do is choose a new pathway. We want to choose a new route home from work where we're consciously engaging in it. And of course, at one point, that's going to become automatic and natural and our default as well. But because we don't like the route we're taking right now, because it's not making us feel good, let's say in this analogy, there's a lot of traffic, but it's not making you feel good. Your mindset isn't where you want it to be because you're feeling really pulled down by it. It's affecting how you feel emotionally. Your perspective on your work, on your life, on your balance, on what you're here to do, on the way you spend your time just feels really draining or it feels really overwhelming. This is what it comes back to. We want to create a new pathway. And the only way to do that is to consciously work together with the subconscious mind to create that new pathway, to create a new belief pattern, which will create a new feedback loop. And that is what it means to rewire your mind. Let me know how this resonated. Let me know if you have any questions. I know I'm like putting a lot of information into a really short period of time, but this is why we're breaking these topics into little short snippets and mini episodes over the next couple of weeks. But this is what mindset mastery is all about. And this is where you shift not only how you feel internally, but what you see show up for you in the world around you. And the best part about this is that it is actually so simple. This is not like learning a hard math problem. And trust me, I hate math. So this is like this would not be my thing. This can actually be done in a very simple, easy, fast, and efficient way. And that is what I'm going to be teaching you how to do inside of my upcoming brand new course, Liberation. So if that is something that you are ready to do, you are ready to not only understand deeply how your mind works, understanding yourself, understanding how to regulate not only your mind, but also your emotional well-being so that the way that you show up in the world gets to be easier, gets to have more balance with it, gets to be embedded and grounded in a deep sense of harmony, right? That is where flow happens in your life. That's where you're actually able to create what you want to create. So we can't do any of that until we are working together with our mind. So if that is what you are now ready to step into, I recommend joining the waitlist below in the description. This is going to be where we dive into the alchemy of mind and emotional mastery in order for you to rebirth balance into your life from the inside out. And this is going to affect, obviously, you on a personal level. It's going to affect how you understand yourself, but it is going to ripple out into every other area of your life as well. So this was Mindset Mastery Mini on rewiring your mind and feedback loops and belief patterns. And next week, we're going to be diving into nervous system regulation. So actually tapping into that emotional element of what we're talking about here and how that relates to mindset mastery.